Hi there, good noon and welcome to a session where now we are shifting our attention to the other exams gradually. So, of course, in your mind you may think that, hey, but CAT hasn't happened yet, so can I switch my attention or whatever? But then, see, at the end of the day, ideally our preparation for all these exams is supposed to happen simultaneously. Right before an exam, we are of course going to focus more on that particular exam, but then it does not mean that we ignore the other exams during our preparation. And considering that the non-CAT exams at times can be significantly different from the CAT, it makes a lot of sense to at least start paying attention to these things as we go, as we proceed. I am not able to see your chat, guys. I'm not sure why. What happened? अरे not there. I don't know why. I'm not even sure, but that's all right. So let's go ahead and start talking about our preparation for the SNAP, and let's go ahead, dive into it. So I welcome you to BYJU'S Exam Prep channel, which is your home, which is the home for preparation of all the B school exams. As you can see, today we are actually going ahead and talking about SNAP. And if you're new to this channel, please subscribe to it and press the bell icon so that you get to know of every single session whenever that happens. As a result, you'd notice that you would not be missing out on anything whatsoever. Okay, so let's go ahead and talk about the SNAP before I talk about specific areas. My name is Vikrant. I'm your personal coach for all things related to English and communication, and that's what we are going to talk about today. Right. Before that, a tiny little thought for you. Start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. So it's very apt if you're preparing for the non-CAT exams right about now. You definitely find this useful, helpful, and it'll of course then be conducive to you. Now, how is SNAP exam different from the other exams? So first up, when you prepare for something like the CAT, you are essentially gearing up for a 2-hour exam, and then if you write something like NMAT, you gear up for a longer exam. So different exams have different durations. Out of all of those, when it comes to the SNAP, it is just a 60-minute exam, and in these 60 minutes you are supposed to go ahead and answer just 60 questions. So yes, it is going to be one of the shortest exams of the season for you. So I've typed it for you as well. So the test duration is 60 minutes, and in these 60 minutes the total number of questions that you're supposed to answer once again is 60. And within these 60 minutes, you can say that the exam is divided across certain sections. So how many sections do we have? Once again, 3 sections. So one of those sections is quantitative aptitude and data interpretation, both of those combined. Then you have a dedicated section to reasoning and another dedicated section to English. So these are the 3 sections that you typically find, but unlike the CAT exam where you have a fixed time given to each of the 3 sections, here you don't have any such story happening. You can spend your time or allocate your time in whichever way you feel like across these 3 sections as per your preference. So frankly, there is no sectional time limit, and for that matter, is there a sectional cutoff? No, there is no sectional cutoff either. So the only thing that matters to you is maximizing your score. And when I say maximizing your score, if you want to get a call from SIBM Pune campus, SCMHRD Pune campus, in going by the last 3 odd years, to be on the safer side, you are looking at a score of 43, 44 plus out of the 60 odd that you have there, and this automatically I think gives you an indication or an inclination of the marking scheme as well. You get +1 for every question that you get right and a -0.25 for every question that you get wrong. So there is negative marking, and the good thing about this exam is that it is not day dependent, unlike a lot of exams, right? CAT, ZAT, etc., where you just have this one day in the entire year and you need to go and appear for it. When it comes to SNAP, you can choose to appear for it thrice. So there are these different slots. Okay, so SNAP test 1 will happen on 10th of December. Then there will be a SNAP test 2 happening on 22nd of December, on 17th of December, and test 3 will happen on 22nd of December. So if you want to, you can actually go ahead and write it more than once. The best of the 3 scores is considered for the admission. And apart from that, of course, SNAP is just one part of the process. Most of these colleges will put you through a personal interaction, which we normally call an interview, a written ability test, and group exercise. So those are the kind of things that you should expect. So right now my focus is the English section, right? So the English section basically has been getting 15 questions, right? And if I look at the last 3 years, the funny thing is this is the only exam where you and I do not get reading comprehension at all. No RC whatsoever. Okay, so no RC. So if we don't get RC, what do we get? So for the last 3 years, we have had a bit of grammar, a bit of vocabulary, and a bit of VA or verbal ability. So if I talk about last year's exam pattern, we had 7 questions of grammar, and we had 7 questions from vocabulary, and we had 1 para-jumble. So that essentially led to these 15 questions for us, and there are different ways of framing these questions. So let's go ahead and talk about those. So the first one is grammar. So if I talk about English, you get a lot of questions on grammar. Now within grammar, there are a lot of different areas that they have tested over the years, and that gives you an indication of the kind of preparation that you need to have. So they can create fill in the blank questions which are grammar based. So when it comes to fill in the blank questions, and they can be vocabulary based, they can be grammar based. So in grammar based questions, they typically end up testing your prepositions or choosing the right part of speech for the blank. So those kind of things. And apart from fill in the blanks, the next thing that we get is error identification. But of course, so in these questions, we are typically given a sentence, and our job is to figure out the part of that sentence which is erroneous, a part which is not right. So the areas that are quite popular with the examiner for the errors, those areas are generally, pronoun antecedent agreement. Then we of course have subject verb agreement. We have seen a fair bit of preposition based questions, a fair bit of questions that are based on verbs, especially things related to tense and conditional sentences. So you talk about tense, you talk about conditionals, you talk about non-finite verbs. So such things. And then of course you can get a fair bit of input from modifiers. So these are sort of the dominant areas that they generally test you on. So if you're well prepared for these areas, I think you should be good to go. Thereafter, So of course you have, then you actually had these dedicated questions on tense, voice and narration. So in tense they may give you a sentence and ask you for the tense of that sentence. And you remember voice, active voice and passive voice, and narration is nothing but your direct and indirect speech. Okay, so they'd give you a sentence and ask you to change it to passive voice or active voice. They can give you a sentence which is in direct speech and ask you to do it in indirect, or vice versa. So those kind of things have happened very frequently. Then word order. Word order. So for the last couple of years, what they're doing is that they're giving us a poem, a sentence from a poem, and they ask for picking up the line which gives you the most standard word order. So in a way, I'd say that this is a syntax based question. So you know the basic syntax in English is subject plus verb plus object. So questions that are built around this. So these are your word order based questions. Then we had questions that test our understanding of the basics of grammar. So typically they'd give you a word which is highlighted, a word as highlighted as a part of a sentence, and they'll ask you to identify its part of speech, the way it is used in that sentence, or to slot its or to identify its element of sentence. Right? So is it a noun, is it an adverb, an adjective, is it a phrase, is it a clause, is it a specific type of phrase, specific type of clause, those kind of things. And that is something that they have done historically over the years. In fact, they haven't really tried it for the last 3 years, but before that we've seen questions about types of sentence, types of phrase, types of clauses, all of them dedicated, types of sentence in particular. So those are the kind of things that you need to be well versed with. And thereafter, we have a lot of vocabulary based questions. Within vocab, you typically have synonyms and antonyms. There can be questions based on idioms. There can be questions based on spellings. Then there are these questions that test your understanding of, once again, grammar basics, but through vocabulary, where they may ask you to identify the compound words. Okay, so that's there. Then they have kind of gone into the etymology of words, where they typically give you a word, they tell you the root of that word, and then there are questions built on that root, or they may, instead of highlighting the root, go on to highlight prefix or suffix and then ask questions from there. So that's vocabulary, and thereafter, of course, you can get some verbal ability questions. They have, off the late, they are going to be typically either fill in the blanks or parajumbles, although historically they have asked us questions based on verbal analogy. They have asked us occasionally one or two times questions based on odd word out, but then typically these are the 3 VA questions that you need to prepare for. And even in these 3, when it comes to fill in the blanks and verbal analogy, you'd notice that they are also in a way dependent on vocabulary. So whenever they appear, they in fact increase the role of vocabulary even further. So just in case you have not gone through these questions a lot, let us go ahead and start solving some of these questions. So here is your first question on the screen. So there is a word which is underlined. Your job is to figure out the part of speech of the word, and you have 20 seconds for it. Your time starts now. Okay, so in this particular case, it is the decision which is questionable. Decision is a noun, and because questionable is talking about the property of a noun, we should call it an adjective. So the correct answer is option B. Question number 2, once again on your screen, you're supposed to figure out the part of speech of loosely, and your time starts now. All right. So what does the word loosely do? Can I say that it goes on to describe based, which is a verb, and therefore loosely should be considered an adverb. There you go. Fair enough? And with that, let's get into our question number 3. Here is the question. So I'll describe the question for you in case you haven't seen this earlier, but in this particular question, we have been given a sentence that is divided into 3 parts. Those 3 parts are part A, part B, part C. And if any of these 3 has a grammatical error, mark that as your answer. On the other hand, if you think that the sentence is all right, there is no error here, in that case, you'd go ahead and choose D as your answer. So go ahead, give it a shot, and then we'll have a look. Okay, so this is a question that is going to be tricky for a lot of you, but the correct answer is C, and the reason is, look at this word then. Do you know that then is a conjunction? And after a conjunction, you cannot have an object. As in, you can, but here it is joining 2 sentences, and the part after then is actually the subject of that other sentence, and therefore we needed an I here, and that's why the answer is C. Here is the next question for you on your screen. What's your take on this? Okay, so some of us may be tempted to mark C as an error, thinking that her is singular and we are different women have been given, but then the subject here is each old lady and her. Whenever you use each, you start treating it as one person, so the verb remains singular, the pronoun subsequently remains singular, and therefore the answer to this question is going to be option D. Here is the next one. Question number 5 on the screen. What do you think should the error be? Okay, so when in difficulty, Priya prefers keeping her counsel than running about taking help from random people. So whenever we use prefer, prefer is followed by to and not then. So this then needs to be replaced by to. I prefer tea to coffee. We not say I prefer tea then coffee. Okay, so that's why the error here is in sentence C. Here is the next one. So go ahead, give this one a shot. Okay, so mere transfer of ownership of public sector unit to private sector eventually ensure. Now, what is the subject of this sentence? Transfer of ownership of public sector unit to private sector. The core noun here is transfer, and as you can see, this noun is singular, and because the subject is singular, the verb must also be singular, but unfortunately the verb here is plural, ensure, and that's wrong. Instead of this, it should have been ensure. So you remember your simple present tense? When the subject is singular, we add an s or an es to the verb, and that's exactly what we had to use while answering this particular question. And here is the next one. So change the voice of the given sentence. So you have been given a sentence which is in active voice. Your job is to choose the option that correctly converts it into passive voice. Go ahead, give it a shot and share your answer with me in the chat down below. Okay, so the correct answer here is option. Should I announce it with a drum roll or something? The correct answer is option D. And with that, let me take you over to the next question, which is going to test your ability to deal with direct and indirect speech. So here you have been given a sentence that is already in indirect speech. So because you're supposed to change the narration, you go from indirect to direct. So a lot of us are used to going from direct to indirect. We find that easy, but here it is. You need to kind of switch it. So let's see how we go about dealing with it. Okay, so if I were to eliminate, this is anyway grammatically incorrect, so let's rule it out. So that leaves you with A, C, and D. In D, although the quote marks have been reintroduced, we still have this conjunction lying around, so that's also incorrect. So between A and C, I don't believe you, I don't believe him. Which one is more consistent with the sentence given to us? He said to me, I do not believe you. That's how he told me that he did not believe me. So we needed this pronoun to refer to the listener. And therefore you is better. So let's choose A and eliminate C. Here is the next one for you. So you've been given a sentence. There is a word which is underlined. Figure out the synonym and your time starts now. Okay, so let's look at the meanings of these different words here. So what is nugatory? Nugatory essentially stands for, my bad, I think the timer got stuck. So let's be done with the timer before we do anything else. So nugatory essentially stands for something that is of no value, that is of no importance, right? So out of these four words, which one talks about, or which one is closest to no value or no importance? That has to be ineffectual. Ineffectual is something that does not produce any significant result or the desired result, and therefore we should go ahead and opt for C as our answer, considering we are looking for a synonym. But here is the next question where I'm not asking for a synonym, I am asking for an antonym of the word obtuse, and your time starts now. All right, so obtuse essentially means a person who is slow, a person who is stupid, you know, thick-skulled, somebody who's not able to understand things easily. And the opposite of that here is going to be quick-witted, because people who are quick-witted are people who are sharp, and therefore that should be our answer to this particular question. And with that, let me dive into our next one. So I'm asking something rather simple. Which one of the following is not a compound word? You have 20 seconds. If you are not sure what a compound word is, please ask it in the chat and I'll explain, but your time starts now. Okay, so what's a compound noun? It is a noun that is made up of more than one word. Okay, so there are times when you combine two words to create a single expression, you call that a compound noun. Now A, B and D are all compound words. Display is just one word, and therefore display is going to be our answer. Okay, so that's how it works. Here is the next one. The question is on your screen and the time starts now. So snug as a bug in a rug is one of those expressions that I personally love a lot of, because of the way it rolls off my tongue. So the correct answer here will be option B, warm and cozy. And the reason is, I mean, if you were to ask me for the meaning of this particular word, I'd say it means somebody who's in an extremely comfortable position or situation. So for example, in her arms, the baby cuddled and snugged as a bug in a rug. So warm and cozy is going to be the closest to that, and therefore that's going to be our answer to this particular question. Here is the next one. Question number 13. You are supposed to identify the figure of speech used in the following sentence, and your time starts now. So the correct answer is B, paradoxes, two seemingly contradictory things happening together. And you notice the two seemingly contradictory bits that are happening here. You see that? We had nothing to do. So on one hand, there is nothing for you to do. And then on the other hand, you're saying, oh, we did it very well. Right? That's obviously a paradox. Antithesis is a sentence showing the opposite of your words or sentiments, which is not what is happening here. Anticlimax is in which statements gradually decrease in the order of importance instead of increasing. So just one statement, that's not happening here either, and therefore these personification is where you treat an inanimate object as a person. These are the kind of things that are not happening here, so you can skip those. Here comes the next one. Question number 14. You've been given 4 words. One of these is spelled correctly. Your job is to figure out the correctly spelled word, and your time spent starts now. So our answer to question number 14 is D. Pharaoh, that's the word. No, Egyptian king, that's the word that's spelled correctly. If you look at A, it requires another R here. Philanderer essentially means a womanizer. Snobbish, supposed to have just a single O, it means somebody who is arrogant. And portend basically means to indicate something that's going to happen in future, especially something bad. So you did not require this I. And there you go. So that's your question number 14. Here is your 15th question. Fill in the blank, but it is based on grammar. Go ahead and give it a shot and then tell me what you say. So the correct answer for question number 15 will be option D, because when it comes to endow, you use it with the preposition with. So when endow with is a phrasal verb, which means to give a particular quality to something, or to say that a particular person happens to have a particular quality. And therefore, we should go ahead and choose C as our, option D as our answer. So that's what I brought for you today. If you enjoyed working with me, don't forget to like the session. And for more practice, you can tune in to our app at 7 every day, where we are running a CAT crash course. Additionally, you can also go ahead and appear for our upcoming All India Open Mock. The window will open on the 27th of October. That's going to be the last one. And if you enroll for our test series, that's also going to give you plenty of practice, as you can see. So that's it from me. If you want to get these great percentiles, keep joining these sessions. That's it. Until I see you next, stay safe, stay focused, stay in touch, and keep preparing well.